Council for Monday, March 11th to order. The City of Dawson Creek acknowledges that we are privileged to live and work on Treaty 8 territory in the traditional home of the Cree, Danazé, Saulteaux, Sicanee, and Slavey First Nations. We value the Métis peoples that live and gather here. We commit to upholding the respectful relationships these nations have built with the land, and we acknowledge our responsibility to carry that forward today and into the future. We're just going to vary the agenda, and we're going to go to 16, we're going to recess to close. Resolution to move into the meeting of council closed to the public. Agenda item 2.1, section 91K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of municipal services that are at their preliminary stages. Motion, Councillor Earl, second Councillor Sudnick. I'll call that to vote.
Charlie, no vote.
Oh, thank you. Do you want to help me?
Vote is closed. It's carried. All right, we'll take whatever long we need, 2 minutes, Carl, and then we'll get it closed. 11th, back to order. So our next order of business was 2 delegations. 2.1 has just had to switch the time, so that'll be coming at a later date, so it'll be canceled today. So next 3, 2024 strategic priorities, 3.1 and 3.2. Is there much of an update for this one, Kevin, or no update? Okay. All right, any questions from council? No. 4 late items. I don't believe there's any late items. 5, new councillor business.
Yes, I have.
Councillor Parslow.
I attended the regional district meeting on behalf of the mayor, and of course one of the big topics was this South East Rural Health Hub, and so we'll be revisiting that later in our meeting.
Closed.
And it was enclosed, yes. Thank you for that reminder. So one of the big topics that it's just being aware is there was a lot of discussion about the Dawson Creek Regional Hospital that's been built and the costs. And what I was impressed with, first of all, is the strong support from the members of the Regional District Board for this project. Just like everything else, costs are escalating, and there was a real concern about the elevation of costs for this project. So one resolution that was passed was that a meeting be held with the Ministry of Health officials. There is a formula that seems that Northern Health and other entities have from the provincial local split. And let's say the local split, and the mayor may well be able to know what that figure is. I should have made note of it. Let's say it's 60% provincial, 40% local hospital region. But that is not enshrined in any legislation. And so the chair of the meeting had a motion that we open discussions about that share in light of the significant cost increases, and with the notion that every region in the province has different economic capacity, different dynamics, and if there's no share in legislation, then where does Northern Health get this from? And we should work at that, because but as a good local government, they saw that the cost increases are going to need a fairly significant hike in the tax rate, which the regional district sets and we contribute to cover some of these costs. They did pass a resolution so as to somewhat mitigate a significantly hefty raise next year. They agreed to an increase for this year so that next year won't be quite so high. But I was impressed with the support for this for our hospital. That's all I'm going to say as we're dealing with the other matter later. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to note that I was happy to attend on Friday evening the Dawson Creek Art Gallery's opening of the Exploring Arts Group exhibit, and very interested to learn from the members of that group some of the history of it and their presence in the community over the years. Just wanted to thank them for the invite and congratulate and thank them for sharing their work and their passion with the community, and encourage the public who might be out and about looking for a little bit of culture over the next little bit to stop by the art gallery and check it out.
Thanks, Councillor Earl. Thanks for attending. Thanks as well, Councillor Parslow, for attending the regional district. And I know you did ask me some questions in there, but I wasn't here, so I haven't been brought up to speed yet on the stuff. But I did read through the agenda for that, and it looks like it might be just some of the when they were originally planning on requisitioning funds for the hospital has changed and what years they're coming out. As reading it, I don't see that it's significantly over budget, but I need to dig a little bit more into that before I can answer that thoroughly. And I know originally there's a percentage deal on the hospital, so this region pays a certain percentage of the cost to a max dollar value. So I think even if it does run over, we're protected a little bit, but I have to go back and look at that, so I'll follow up though. So thank you. Any other new councillor business? No? All right. Next, we got 6, adoption of minutes. So 6.1, minutes of the public consultation, 2024 budget, on February 26, 2024 for adoption. Councillor Earl, second. Councillor Kemp. We'll call that to vote. It was closed. That's carried. Next, 6.2, minutes of the regular meeting of council with committee of the whole on February 26, 2024 for adoption. Councillor McDonald, second. Councillor Apollonio. I will call that to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Any business arising? Correspondence. 8.1, we have a letter from Curtis York. Curtis York Trucking received on March 5th, 2024 regarding a response to Stage 2 water conservation measures. I guess, Kevin, did you want to add anything before we discuss it? I know one thing in there, the restrictions that we do have are that potable water cannot be used for non-potable use. So I think in a area where water is needed for a heating system, I think that's probably something where staff could work with Curtis York Trucking on how that works. And we talked about maybe they had 2 different meters, and one is shut off, so maybe that needs to be turned on. But I don't know if you wanted to add anything else.
Yeah, so through your worship, just looking at Mr. York's letter there, just one thing a couple things. One thing I wanted to highlight is, although we've had some additional moisture, by no means, I don't want the public or anybody to think that this has solved all our problems, because in fact it hasn't. Right now we're still have yet to realize the water we've released from Bear Hole Lake has not made it to the weir as of yet. The cold weather that we experienced a week or so ago has certainly impeded that. Now we're into a warming trend, so hopefully we see that water that is now ice, start to loosen up and make its way. So that's positive. But we are still very, very dry. The whole Northeast is extremely dry. Flying the other day, as you fly over the Rockies and over Tumbler Ridge, there just isn't much snow out there anywhere. So, and again, although they may have got snow in the mountains, our system is not fed from that snowpack. We rely on the snow that falls around Bear Hole Lake, in that area. and feeds this way. So I just wanted to highlight that although we've got some precipitation, it is far from enough at this point, and we are still. Each day we're going in the negative. We're not able to pump as much as we're using, so we're monitoring that closely. Stacy has the crew there on a plan to make sure we pump what we can while we can, and again, the warming trend will help, and we'll see where that goes. And then back to the request from Mr. York. Yeah, I mean, currently the way the conservation bylaw is structured is stage 2, which where we're at. It clearly says that you can't haul potable water for non-potable uses. The intent of the bylaw, when it was developed, was to prevent large water hauls for fracking. That was what we were going through at the time when we developed the bylaw, and that was the intent, was to stop that use. So. My understanding here in the letter that Mr. York's provided is he's concerned about his infrastructure at his building. So, I mean, if he's not hauling water, then we can certainly work with him and see what needs to happen there. But if he's not hauling it, it's not contravening the bylaw, so it shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, okay. So, and I mean, really to accommodate, I think we feel what the impact this has on our community, all right, businesses and our residents, but we can't, you can't request some water for some and for others within the bylaw anyways, right?
No, it's
changing the bylaw. So.
That's correct. I mean, council can't waive a bylaw. You can amend a bylaw, but that applies to everybody. We can't pick winners and losers. It applies to all. So, and we can't assist a business. And essentially, if we were just allowing one business to do it, that's what we would be doing. So. But again, if it's as it's read in the letter, as he's not hauling, then it doesn't, contravene the bylaw. Now, if it's different than that, then we'll have to look at that. Again, the options for council would be to amend some language in the bylaw that would provide some different parameters while still limiting those large water hauls, or rescinding stage 2 water conservation measures, which staff would strongly recommend against at this point because we're not in a position we feel to do so.
And then just speaking with yourself and Stacy this morning a bit on like the bylaw, do you think like looking at like revisiting that bylaw and maybe is that worth something, getting some direction to do just to see if there is some alternatives? I
think again, as you go through these things, you always learn that there's always maybe some gaps and some things that we could improve on. So we'll take a look and see if there's some language to provide a little more clarity as, things change. So we may have to do that.
Do you feel like you would want some direction from council today on that, or is that something you're going to do?
No, I honestly think, it's almost like a housekeeping item where we realize that there's some gaps and we'll look at that and look to bring something forward into the future.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Parslow?
So my understanding of this note from Curtis is, as the mayor said, it's a sort of an infrastructure challenge, chemicals and so on. And he also talks, though, that circulating that water, right, would not solve the problem. So there needs to be a bit of a flow through. Where will that water that's flowing through go? Is that just going to go down a drain, or will it go into a tank? And because the potable water goes in, stores it, it's treated, it's got chemicals, and then it goes fracking. Surely the solution is not just to allow some water to maintain the infrastructure, but we also want the safe disposal. Does he just need a minimal flow, or is it a significant flow for the infrastructure? That's the question in my mind. I don't expect you to have any answers.
Yes, through your worship, and those are questions that staff are going to have to talk directly with Mr. York and see. The letter indicates, obviously, there's two asks. One, I'd like 1,600 cubes a month to continue his business. The other is 500 to preserve his infrastructure. So we just need to identify what that looks like.
And where that water's going to
Yeah.
go.
Make a motion.
Well, I'm prepared to support, to authorize staff to work with Curtis York Trucking to come up with a workable plan to maintain the infrastructure of his business.
Have a second, Councillor Sudnick.
So I might be too late on this, but my only request might be, and maybe just letting council know, it needs to be within the parameters of the bylaw.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll have that, working within the parameters of the bylaw, yes. But that may mean future amendment of the bylaw.
Yeah. Okay. Any discussion on that motion? No? All right, I will call, Councillor
Just,
McDonald, sorry, go ahead.
Quick question. How much of a deficit are we running right now?
So, through your worship, I was just looking at that this morning. It depends on the day, because again, it depends on what we're able to pump from the intake reservoir, because that has been changing depending on the weather and how warm it is and stuff. So, in recent days, we're averaging about a 2,500 cubic meter per day deficit. And we average about 6,000 a day. So, 40%. Overall, we've been running a deficit since January 20th. Again, varying amounts. The total deficit that we've run since then has been, just get to the end here, 132,600 cubic meters. We've been able to pump, 270,000, but we've used 405,000. So we're continually in the negative for a bit. But again, we're hoping that when we do get to some runoff, we can be in the positive, and positive enough that we can start to replenish some of these deficits that we've seen. Time will tell, right? The forecast right now, we just got an update from Environment Canada for the into the spring and early summer, is that the northeast, where we're at, is still looking at above average temperatures and below average precipitation. There is an expectation that we will change from an El Nino to a La Nina, but that's really not going to help us until next fall. So
we're down about 15% in our reserves, roughly? Or in our reservoirs?
yeah, so we're down, and again, it all depends on how much we can use out of the reservoirs, right?
Yeah.
So there's varying, because we've never got into where we have to use, every last drop, so to speak. We know, or we expect practically, that we can only draw down the reservoirs to a certain amount to keep them serviceable and stable. So although we might have 300 or 400 days worth of water, we might only be able to use, 200 days of that water total. Yeah. So that is why we're managing this as carefully as we are. We need to ensure that as we move through spring and into what appears likely to be another warm and dry summer, that we're in as best position we could be.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was thinking of bringing this up under CAO updates, but now that we're talking about it, obviously you guys are doing a great job at monitoring it, but, we're 15% down or whatever that is over a month and a bit. Like, at what point do we get more concerned? Like, is it another month you're kind of thinking to see what happens with the runoff, and then we'll
Well, through your worship, and again, I think within, it's warmed up there late last week, so I would say we'll start to see something this week. We'll start to see some indications of the warm weather providing some additional flows in there. It's just that there's not a lot of snow out there to melt. And so that's really, we need, it was raining yesterday and I was saying to myself, if it did this for a week, I'd be happy, but it only lasted for about an hour.
Yeah.
So it's hard to predict. It's all weather dependent. And, I'd like to say, we're going to get some more snow or rain in the watershed, but I just don't know. So we're going to continue to monitor this. We have something that we're going to bring forward to council here in the not too distant future is a water scarcity report that we completed. Actually, it was very timely. We started this last year with help with the province, and really speaks to a lot of this and a lot of the triggers and a lot of the steps and guidelines that will really help us guide us through this exact thing we're going through. So it's just in the final stages, final drafts, and there's a few things we need to tweak. Once we have that, we'll bring it forward to council and just kind of walk through it. And again, it's a great document that's going to help guide decision making on these sorts of things.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Parslow?
Well, I really appreciate the Mayor's questions. Can I just add one? The swimming pool. Many communities closed their swimming pools last year. Does our pool, is it flow through, or where does that water go, or is it just a recycling system within the pool? It's recycled? Good, thank you.
Yeah, and I know, so as we go into fall shutdown, that may become an issue depending on where we're at, because it'll be really about refilling the pool. And in subsequent stages of the water conservation bylaw, it talks specifically about pools, and of course that would affect us. So again, that's a ways away, and hoping that we don't get there, but something to consider.
Thank you. All right, if there's no more discussion on the motion, I know we went off track a little bit, but I will call that motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. All right, next order of business 9 reports. 9.1, we have a memo from corporate officer regarding the BC SPCA 2024 animal control budget. So to renew a defeated motion. So, I'm going to bring this motion back up to renew the motion. So the original motion was that council approve the revised BC SPCA proposal of $344,791. Further, that the contract increase be implemented over a 4-year period as follows: 2024. 2,040,778, 2025, 275,449, 2026, $310,120, 2027, $344,791. Further, that council directs staff to draft a new 5-year animal responsibility agreement. Further, that council directs staff to implement an animal licensing software in 2024 in the amount of $6,740 and transition administration of pet licensing from the BC SPCA to the city of Dawson Creek. So do I have a second? Councillor McDonald? All right, I will open it up for discussion. And I'm just bringing that motion that was initially on. It doesn't mean that this is the motion that has to take place, but if we, want to vote again and it does get defeated again, we do need to give direction to the staff. So we all need that as well. So Councillor Earl. Oh, sorry, Councillor Parslow.
No.
Again. No, it's you, Councillor
Okay,
Earl.
thank you. I mean, I'm not sure what alternative my colleagues have in mind. As I mentioned, I think their last council meeting when I did a tour of the SPCA facility, and I think Kevin also highlighted it, barring a dramatic change in the service level, I don't see how we as a municipal government could replicate what they do for a comparable amount of cost or a comparable dollar amount. And I don't, facility-wise, staffing-wise, I don't think that's a business we want to get into. Or it's certainly not, having seen firsthand what they're doing. And there's also some stuff that, maybe I wasn't as acutely aware of around disease control and the amount of lab work they send out when they get strays, when they find litters of abandoned cats that are, they have to test them for disease. And just some things I really didn't consider that could potentially impact our region if they're allowed to languish or they gain a foothold in snowball. So as hard as the cost increase is to swallow, and nobody appreciates the surprise. I certainly don't. I don't see how we could do it cheaper ourselves, and I don't know if getting out of a significant portion of the business altogether is going to serve the long-term interests of the community as far as health and safety, not only for animals, but for people. So,
Thanks, Councillor L. Councillor Parslow, you have to push your button again. I shut you off. So. Councillor Parslow?
Yes, well, the long-term need of the community is to have a solid financial platform to operate the core services of the community in the future. We asked for a cost with the changes to the CAT procedures. They declined to give us one. We have a Cadillac service here, and we are being asked to shoulder on a massive increase as a percentage. And unless I know where the money's coming from, I would like to have had more information from them vis-a-vis the CAT issue. I will not support any increase for the BC SPCA. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Any other discussion? Councillor Apollonio?
Yeah. Is this a 4-year period? Is that right? Can we also only do 1 year period for a time, for example, just to make sure that we are shooting on a budget?
Yeah, we can amend this in any way. So we can amend or we could defeat this and have a new motion. We just, at the end of today, we need to give direction to staff. So if we didn't want to do this and we just wanted to do a 1 year, we could. The problem is from 1 year from now, we're sitting in the same spot. So, but yeah, I don't know. Did you need to add anything? No. Okay. Yeah. Did that answer, Councillor Apollonio? Okay. Any other discussion? I will add a couple comments. One, not taking away from what the SPCA does or the team down there. I really believe they're an asset to our community and they do an unbelievable job. And I know our staff has worked hard to try to look at other areas, but I agree with Councillor Parslow. Principally, I can't support this. I think it's too much of a significant increase, and you're talking from the 200 that we're at now to 350 in 3 years. That revenue is going to have to come from a tax increase. There's no other way. So we're going to increase revenue by over 1% again to taxes just for SPCA, and I'm not taking away from what they do. Principally, I can't vote in favor of it. So I don't know what that direction is, but it's a significant amount of money. And I still go back, to our struggles that we have with transit and other things in our community to spend as much on SPCA. I know there's a difference still, but I just have a hard time when our transit system is not working right now and other things where we could use funding to better our services, our core services. And for that, I just can't, So that's my 2 cents on it anyways. I do appreciate what they do, and they've helped us out personally, and I've been through a tour of the facility before. It's an amazing place, but yeah. Any other discussion? No. I'm going to call this motion to vote. Vote is closed, and it's defeated. Councillor Apollonio, myself, Councillor Kemp, Councillor McDonald, Councillor Parslow, and Councillor Sudnick were opposed. And I know now we need to give some direction to staff. So I don't, what do we currently pay? Do you have that? I know 2024 we've budgeted 240 and that's in our budget. So can we not say like $240,000 is the commitment that the city can give? And if you can't do it, then we need to revisit the bylaw? Or like, I know that it's not ideal, but I mean, I don't know what other way to.
So through your worship, I mean, we've had a number of those discussions with the SPCA. That is why they were willing to transition the costs over 4 years to where they feel that the contract needed to be. They are willing to work with us, and they have. They've held the price for a year. We're here. They're willing to do another 1 year contract, but you're absolutely right. That just means a year from now we get to have the same discussion, and I don't believe the options have honestly really changed. You know, as staff have indicated, we need to park the dollars for a second and just decide, do we want the service in the community? If we do want the service in the community, if we want animal control, then the cost is going to be cheaper to go with the SPCA than it is for us to do it in-house, we without a doubt. We've asked the SPCA for a cost difference if we got rid of cats and didn't deal with the cat issues and stuff like that. Basically what they've told us is that they don't feel that there's a significant change in costs. You know, if we change our bylaw, sure, they don't recommend us changing the bylaw, you know, for you know, various reasons. But if we do, there may be a slight change in cost, but it sounded to us, based on discussions, that it was fairly minimal. They were still going to need the same officers. They've still got the same, you know, infrastructure. So, you know, I don't think it changes much. I think what you have in front of you is we can do 2024 at $240,000. If we want to go beyond that, it's going to cost more money. And that's, so do we want the service? If we don't, we give them 90 days notice, we get out of animal control. We don't do it. Bylaw doesn't do it, RCMP won't do it. We've reached out to other people around, nobody wants to do it. This is not an endeavor that people are clamoring to take on. So that's part of the issue. The SPCA do this is what they do, and there's not really anybody else that wants to do it. So I'm sure that has some impact on things as well. But from our perspective, I don't know what more we can do. I mean, we can go back to them again and say 240 is the number we've got to work with. Tell us what we get for that. We can do that if that's what council wants, but
Okay. Well, Councillor Parslow.
In previous councils, we were told that we had a bylaw that was the envy of BC SPCA, wished that other municipalities had this top-notch bylaw, that we were rather unique in what we were doing. So I think the direction I am thinking about is that we certainly scale back our bylaw. I certainly want the community to be made safe from aggressive dogs. Other related matters, we know the SPCA does fabulous work. The animal control function is what I'm addressing. Okay. So, as the mayor correctly, in my mind, correctly identified, this is about a 1% hike. And I'm a huge fan of direct democracy. Sometimes I think some of these issues should be taken to the public. And maybe we need to do that a little more often about some things where we need an extraordinary levy for something. Break it out. We do that for capital when we don't have the money. There are some things in the city's operations that we need to perhaps look at as well, where people understand the consequences to their tax bill. So I'm reflecting on that, and we, as a council, have never talked about those sort of things. But it's natural for any organization that I know of to protect its staff and not do the work that's needed necessarily. So it doesn't surprise me what the SPCA's response is, but ultimately I think we should review our bylaw and scale it back and see where we get with that. So if you're acceptable, I'd like to make a motion that we staff conduct a review of our bylaw and delineate those things that are not absolutely core to the safety of the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Parzo. Do I have a second? Councillor Sednick.
So through your worship, what do we do in the meantime? Does council wish to do the bylaw renewal before we extend the contract for any period of time? Like, I don't know how long the SPCA is willing to hang on without a contract. To be fair to them, we need to make a decision. So, and we're not going to flip the bylaw around in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So does council want to then look to extend the contract for 1 year and allow us to do the bylaw changes and then see if that results in any appreciable changes in a future contract? And if not, then the decision on the service becomes, at that point, really at budget time this fall.
Okay. Councillor Parzo, did you want to?
I'd be perfectly willing to make another motion that gives direction about the intermediate. You can't do this work overnight, but I just keep things simple. I'd be perfectly willing to make a motion
What we got?
that deals with, let's say, this next period. Let's say the next year. Okay.
Okay. Well, we'll deal with.
Your points are very valid, Kevin. But if you trust me, I will do it, or somebody else will.
Okay. So, is there any discussion on the motion that's on the floor? No. Okay, I will call that motion to vote. Oh, I had the little sign there, so I thought it was added. Okay, all in favor? It's carried.
I think I've changed my mind, Kevin.
Councillor Parzo.
I move that the budgeted amount of $240,778 be set as our BC SPCA budget.
Is that sufficient
Does that do it for you?
for a 1 year,
For
to sign a 1
1 year
year?
extension.
1 year extension. Okay. Do I have a second? Councillor Sudnick? Discussion. I had a couple things. One, I asked this question and I don't know for sure, but I know back in the day the SPCA was very strong on their fundraising in the community, and there was a huge portion. And I believe that that's, part of community, right? We're contributing as a city part, they were fundraising part. And I think too, with some of the changes with the BC SPCA is maybe that their fundraising that they do here is for BC SPCA as a whole, not just for a region. But the other part, I liked what you said, Councillor Parslow, is about community. And we do reach out to the community with big things, but I think that this is something too, that it's how do we reach out to the community to get their opinion on this and what this makes. I know we're here representing the community, but, and I know we've tried lots of different things to get more of an opinion from residents, but yeah, I mean, if there's solutions out there or things like, this is something we're definitely open to ways to do things. So I appreciate that comment, and I'd love to explore that, or if there's ways to bring in our community. That's what we're all here for. So yeah, so thank you for that. So, any other discussion? No, you're clear, Kevin? It's clear to you, the motion?
So just to make sure I am clear, so if this goes through, then we'll renew for 1 year, and during that time frame, we'll be looking at coming back with a new, an amended animal control, animal responsibility bylaw for council to consider.
Yeah, that's what I understood. Good, okay. All right, I will call this motion to vote. Are we good? Oh, vote is closed. It's carried. All right, next 9.2, we have report number 24-032 from the Chief Financial Officer regarding 2024 Draft 3 budget. So, I think, again, a great report, and thanks for all the information. I was going to get, there's a couple reconsideration motions I have to bring up, so I will do that, but I just wanted to see if, through Kevin, if Melissa can give just a bit of a brief overview on all of this, so. No. There you go, Melissa.
Thank you. So through your worship, so you'll see the draft 3 budget included in the package. A public consultation meeting was held on February 26th, and no correspondence was received, and none of the attendees present in council chose to address present in chambers chose to address council. So the only amendment that we were looking at draft 3 was the incorporation of the donation and the subsequent loan that was approved that same day to the South Peace Mile Zero Park Society for the construction of a pump track. In further investigation by myself and looking into the loan and the donation and the accounting treatment of them, and digging a bit deeper on the fact that we aren't going to own that asset. I know it's attached to our land, but theoretically, they're the ones that are applying for all the other grants. And so given that, both the donation and the loan do need to flow through the operating reserves as opposed to the capital reserves, which is why you're seeing the request to reconsider the 2 motions that were made in previous meetings. And so you'll see that we're recommending that the grant be moved to be funded from the Growing Communities Fund that sits and resides within Capital Reserve to the General Operating Fund, and the same treatment for the loan as well. We still have not drafted the loan agreement. Right now, the budget that presented to you today includes the assumption that it's interest-free and that it won't be repaid back by December 31st. And so you'll see that next meeting with the 5-year financial plan that we'll see that money come back with the assumption the year after. And if that changes, we'll deal with that then. But for budget, it's a planning tool, and so that's what we've kind of assumed for now. The summary changes on page 36 of the package summarize the changes in the operating reserves. So originally, the budget assumed an operating surplus of approximately $42,000. And now with the donation, that's changed to a deficit of 108. On page 3 of the report, you'll see the general operating funds at the beginning of the year were $22.8 million. So even though we're seeing that fund sitting in a deficit, there is the money available there to cover that donation. And the loan will see that money come back the year after.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. All right, Councilor Parzo, are your questions regarding that, or will they come up when I bring these motions back up?
It's a question. It probably may not.
Okay, go ahead.
So I appreciate all this, but just want to make sure that So you're saying that if the city, forget this particular project, if the city wishes to provide a grant to an organization to help it build something, which is a capital project, we can't use capital funds, we have to use operating funds. That's the rule, is it?
Through your worship, correct. Theoretically, if they maintain ownership, if let's say they didn't have the manpower or whatever it was, and they said, this pump track, we can't do this anymore, they could go and take it out because they've fundraised for it, they own that asset.
Well, with our agreement, as I understand it, the lease agreement, that if the society, maybe it's just if the society folds, all the assets accrue to the city. But you're saying if a particular part of it gets removed, right? Yeah, okay, I see the distinction. Yeah, okay. I'm just getting some education here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thanks, Councilor Barzal. I only asked just because I know we were dealing with these three, so if it was coming up then, so. All right, so I'm going to bring back to reconsideration the first motion on the floor. So this was motioned by Councillor Parslow, second by Councillor Kempf, that Council authorize a grant of $150,000 from the Growing Communities Fund to the South Peace Mile Zero Park Society towards the beginning pump track and bike skills track project. And if somebody would like to make an amendment, Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will amend the motion to read, remove the Growing Communities Fund phrase and replace with the General Operation Reserve. So the motion as amended will be that Council authorize a grant of $150,000 from the General Operating Reserve to the South Peace Mile Zero Park Society towards the Beginners Pump Track and Bike Skills Track project.
Thanks, Councillor Earl. Do I have a second? Councillor Sudnick. I'll call that to vote. On the amendment, yeah. And that's closed, and that's carried. Any discussion on that? No. And do I need to call the motion again because it's okay? So is there no discussion? Okay, I will call the motion as amended to vote. Councillor Parslow. Vote is closed. It's carried. Thank you. I'll also bring back the second motion, which was also moved by Councillor Parslow, seconded by Councillor Kempf, that report number 24-026 from the Chief Financial Officer regarding South Peace Mile Zero Park Society, Beginners Pump Track, and a Bike Skills track project funding be received. Further, that council authorize an agreement with the South Peace Mile Zero Park Society for a loan of up to $350,000 for the beginners pump track and a bike skills track project funded by the General Capital Reserve Fund. So that is back on. Would somebody like to make an amendment? Councillor Parslow.
So I move that the Capital Reserve Fund be removed and replaced with the Operating Reserve Fund. And motion that report number 24-02 from the CFO, the South Peace Mile Zero Park Society Beginners Pump Track and a Bike Skills Track project funded be received. Further, that council authorize an agreement with the South Peace Mile Zero Park Society for a loan of up to $350,000 for the Beginners Pump Track and a Bike Skills Track project funded by the General Operating Reserve Fund.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Do I have a second? Councillor Sudnick. I'll call that amendment to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. So the motion has amended. Any discussion on this? No. I will call that to vote. Vote is closed, and it's carried. All right, there's one more for the draft 3. Would somebody like to? Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to move the report number 24-032 from the Chief Financial Officer regarding 2024 Draft 3 budget report be received. Further, the council approve the 2024 Draft 3 budget as presented.
I have a second. Councillor Apollonio. Any discussion? Councillor Earl?
Oh, no, sorry.
Oh, discussion. Councillor Parslow.
Well, whilst I support the changes, I do not support Budget 3 for reasons I've articulated to my colleagues, so I will be voting against this, but appreciate the changes.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. All right, any other discussion? No, I think we've thanked yourself and your team a few times, Melissa, but just to thank you again for everything that you've done, and yeah, we appreciate it, so thank you. I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. One opposed, Councillor Parslow. All right, I am going to just call a 5-minute recess. Back to order. Next order of business was 9.3. We have report number 24-028 from the Parks and Facilities Manager regarding the RCMP Airport Hangar space rental. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to move the report number 24-028 from the Parks and Facilities Manager regarding RCMP Airport Hangar Space Rental be received. Further, that council approve the RCMP lease agreement between the City of Dawson Creek and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police for a 5-year term commencing January 1st, 2024 and ending December 31st, 2028.
Thanks, Councillor McDonald. Do I have a second? Councillor Apollonio. Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Worship. In my recollection, and I apologize if I've got some selective amnesia, this is the first time this lease agreement has come before me in my capacity as a councillor. Am I mistaken in that? Or, sorry, through you to staff, Your Worship.
Through your worship, I'm probably in the same boat as you. I don't recall seeing it, but
And this is a renewal of an existing deal, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, it's been there for a long time that they've had equipment.
Okay.
stored
I
out
just
there.
want to make sure we were still going to have plenty of room for the Chinese drones. Thank you, Kevin.
What type of, was that?
Any other discussion? I'm going to call this motion to vote.
Ruling out of order, sensitive.
But I'm in favor.
The vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, 9.4, we have report number 24-029 from the Parks and Facility Manager regarding RCMP Telecom lease agreement. Councillor Kempf.
Thank you, Worship. I'll move the recommendation, the report number 24-029 from the Parks and Facilities Manager regarding RCMP Radio Tech building lease be received. Further, that Council approves the lease agreement between the City of Dawson Creek and Royal Canadian Mounted Police regarding 10000 13th Street for a 10-year term starting January 1st, 2024 and ending on December 31st, 2033.
Do I have a second? Councillor McDonald, any discussion? I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, we have 9.5, report number 24-031 from the Capital Project Manager regarding Capital Roadworks Program Camarlo Subdivision Phase 3. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to move the report number 24-031 from the Capital Projects Manager regarding Capital Roadworks Program Camarlo Subdivision Phase 3 be received. Further, that Council award the Capital Roadworks Program Camarlo Subdivision Phase 3 to Parallel Projects Incorporated for the tendered price of $1,235,042 plus applicable taxes.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Do I have a second? Councillor Sudnick. Any discussion? All right, I'll call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. That's carried. Next, 10 bylaws. 10.1, we have report number 24-030 from the General Manager of Community Service regarding Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw number 4577, 2024. So we'll note in there that there's a couple different options. Part of that is, maybe I'll get Ryan to just give a quick, brief overview, if that's fine with you, Kevin, through to you. Get Ryan to give a brief overview on the two options there.
Thank you, through your worship. So the last council meeting, we had the committee of the whole discussion, received your feedback and input, and so we're back here today to sort of go through that next step. Staff went back, we reviewed your suggestions and recommendations. Staff had an internal conversation about ability to implement, working on the engagement or the communication side of it, working with the software provider, et cetera. Just not really, and the staff time to implement in 2024, moving the decision of 2026 leveling to 2024. That is something that staff, we would not be able to achieve this year. So along that premise, we looked at the availability or the opportunity to achieve your goal of leveling sooner, and that we're recommending that we be able to, and should be able to in 2025 to do that leveling. So instead of bringing it from 26 to 24, really we need the year to work through the communication, the staff, the timing, and working through with our software provider to implement the multi-pass, although we can do multi-punch cards individually for each function, but to aggregate it across the system, we won't be able to do that. And so the recommendation in front of you is there's two options. Option A is the leveling in 2025 and still moving forward with all that, but doing it in 25, or the option B is to do it in 26, which to make sure you have those two options available for you. But the staff recommendation is to do option A, which is bring it and do the leveling and the changes sooner, but doing it in 25.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for all your work on this. Somebody like to, Councillor Parslow.
If I can ask a question.
Sure. Yes, you may.
Are you sure?
Well, I don't know. I had a little hesitation, but I don't know why that was, but I'll...
Well, actually, the mayor, who makes many good good statements. Did suggest this this card, the past going across different things. So I'm not sure when you went through your option A and B. Option A is to level things for 2025, right? Or option B is 2026. Where does this multi-pass card fit in? Does that fit in both options?
Well, I think it does fit, from what I understand, it does fit into both. And option A would have it by 2025. Option B would be by 2026. So
I really...
The pass is still there, it's just that we can't implement it as soon as you want in '24, and we're
Right.
coming back to you saying that we can do it in '25.
Right, so I'm pleased. So I would make a motion that we adopt option A, but you've probably got some language in here I have to read or something.
yeah, there is. Councillor Barslow, you have.
If I to move that report number 24-030 from the General Manager of Community Services, Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw number 4577/2024 be received. Further, that Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw number 4577/2024 be given the first three readings that include option A Schedule H.
Thanks, Councillor Barslow. Councillor McDonald, second. Any discussion? Did you want to speak to that, Ryan?
If I could, Your Worship, I think the one thing is that I'd be remiss not to say thank you to yourselves for your input, but really, more importantly, to my staff. They've spent an extraordinary amount of time over the last year and a half, almost 2 years, of working through some of this information, and the entire team at Community Services of just walking through and reviewing. And I just really think it's important that although I'm here as the face to help deliver it and move it forward, really just want to make sure that a shout out to the entire Community Services Department and that team to make sure where we are today.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Ryan. I think that we agree 1,000% with that. This is something that is a huge enhancement to what we deliver, and I get to see it every day what the team is doing. So we definitely share your thank you. So thanks. All right, any other discussion? No? I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Thank you. Next, 11, Mayor's Business. I didn't have an opportunity to get my Mayor's update in by the deadline for the agenda, but I had a pretty small, just a couple things I wanted to touch base on. One, I was away for a bit, but before I left, I went on the Chili Walk for Hope. That was done at Networks Ministries, so it was a fundraiser. This was kind of their first year going out on their own, and I don't know if they've released financially how much they did. Oh, it's public, so I think it was just over $60,000, or was it 40? 40, okay, just over $40,000, which was succeeded what their expectations were and they were planning to. And it was an amazing event. I don't know how many people were in there, but there had to be like 150 to 200 when I was in there. It was well attended. We have a ton of amazing organizations in our community, but Networks Ministry is definitely one of them. And what they do to help the most vulnerable in our community doesn't go unnoticed. So I just wanted to thank you to them and to Kara Funk for, she was one that kind of took the project on this year and organized it. So a thank you to them and to everybody that participated. So it was well attended. I didn't get a chance to walk because I was in between our son's hockey tournament. So I snuck over for the first 15 minutes and had to head back. So, but it was amazing. Then also too, I haven't seen it yet, but I just did want to give a shout out to Ryan and Melissa, the team at the city, for the magazine. I've heard that it's now officially out, the City Dawson Creek magazine. So just expect to see that. And I thought maybe I would see it this morning, but no, I just wanted to touch base on that. And I haven't seen it yet, but I know that this is kind of the first year with the new team going at it. And I'm excited about seeing some of the changes and look forward to where it goes. So thank you. And I didn't have anything else. I don't know if there was any questions to me. No? All right. We did have 11.1, but because Johanna was unable to attend, we will revisit that later. 12, CAO, Chief Administrative Officer Operational Update. Kevin, did you have anything?
Good morning, through your worship. Really was just going to touch on the water, and we spoke a fair amount about that in an earlier item, so I don't have a whole lot. I will say that I was able to get away for 10 days, and I want to thank my staff that afforded me that opportunity. It was nice to have a group that was able to look after everything for me, so I do appreciate that. So, yeah, if anybody's got any questions about anything that I did speak about earlier, or if there's something that burning questions.
I'm glad you got to get away, so
Yeah.
you deserved it. So I did the business revitalization tax. Could you touch base a little bit on that?
Yeah.
I know we've had some discussion around that.
Right, so we had talked at one point about a revitalization tax exemption and just what that could look like. So Melissa and I have chatted, and just as she's finalizing the budget up here, the intent is to start working on some options that we could look at. And I think what we would do is bring something to committee of the whole that we could walk through and just what it could look like and see what council's feedback on that might be, and then before we were to go any further. So
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any other questions? No? All right. Thanks, Kevin. Next order of business, 13 diary. I don't think there's anything in the diary. 14 consent calendar. Nothing in the consent calendar. 15 media questions, no media. 16 recess to close meeting. So actually just one second here. We need to read all this out because we'll do. Yeah, obviously that, but the other one we're doing at 12:30. Should I read that out too? Might as well. Okay. So recess to close meeting agenda item 2.2, section 1E, the acquisition, position, or expiration of land or improvements, if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality, in section 91K, negotiations and related discussion respecting the proposed provision of municipal services that are at their preliminary stages. Agenda item 3.1 and 3.2, section 90 minutes, as previously noted. Agenda item 4.1, section 91K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of municipal services that are at their preliminary stages. And section 91J, information that is prohibited from disclosure under section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And section 91I, the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege. As well, agenda item 5.1, section 91K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of municipal services that are at their preliminary stages. Councillor Earl, second. Councillor Kemp, all those in, I'll call that to vote. Vote is closed and it's carried. All right, thank you, everyone. We will take as long as Carl wishes, and we'll get closed.